Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this fifth meetup for agents and counselors across the Americas. We are about to delve into boarding school opportunities in the UK. And today we will explore unique opportunities and benefits that UK boarding schools offer to students from the Americas, from academic excellence to rich cultural experience. Join us as we delve into the world of British boarding education and discover why it is a top choice for families seeking a world-class education. We want to welcome as well Alexandre, President of BELTA from the Brazilian Educational Language Travel Association, who we proudly have an association with. So Alexandre, I pass on the microphone to you.
Thank you, Leslie, for this introduction. It's always a pleasure. We are thankful for the great partnership BELTA has developed with the British Council over the past few years, and to bring one more time very useful information to our agents here. I always like to share that, especially in my own life here as an agent, especially after the pandemics, I have seen a very interesting growth of private and boarding school sales in Brazil. So I do know it's always good. It's always a great product, a great program for us as agents to sell as well, because it brings a lot of very nice quality clients and also a good profit for the agents. So, you know, I really believe that this session is going to be very important to all of the agents, and we can really take a lot out of it. Thank you so much. Once again, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Alexander. Before we commence, I would like to welcome everybody that has joined this meeting today. And I would like to establish some protocols to ensure the smooth and productive flow of our online session. We kindly request to please keep your microphones muted throughout the presentation to eliminate any background noise. You can also turn off your video if that makes it easier. The session will be recorded and you will be able to access it anytime. We usually upload it into our YouTube website. We will share the link with you after this session. Active engagement is also encouraged, so you may pose any questions and contribute to the discussion and the discourse using the chat feature at any time during the session. Following Metropolis' presentation, we will also have a Q&A session. You may raise your hand virtually or post any questions directly. You may also type your queries in the chat, and we will facilitate their addressing. I will also be sharing with you an attendance link in a minute, and I would really appreciate if you take some time to fill it in. And we are honored to have today with us Dominic Moon, who has worked with independent schools over the past 15 years. He has toured over 300 boarding schools, conducted teacher trainings, and spoken at industry events. We're also today with us Steve Paxton, who is an independent school boarding expert, a UK child and student sponsor license specialist, including overseeing many UKVI compliance inspections, and he's a UKVI expert. Without any further delay, I pass on the microphone to Dominic and Steve. Dominic and Steve, thank you very much for joining today.
No, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I just need to find where the share button's gone now. Share screen. Here we go. This will make it far more interesting for you. So, yes, thank you all. Thank you for taking the time out to come and listen to us today. I'm hopefully going to give you all the information you need to be armed to speak confidently with families and parents about UK boarding. I'm actually a stand-in today. My colleague Ruth, there's a picture of her on my next slide, I think, or slide after. She's actually at the Buckingham Palace today, meeting the King and doing a garden party, I think, or something like that. So hopefully the presentation will cover everything you need to know. If it doesn't, as Lindsay said, just use the chat. Let's ask the questions. You've got me for a good spell. And interestingly, on my description, and this is how time flies when you're getting older, you said 15 years. It's actually 20 now. So I must change that. I blinked and time had suddenly passed. So yeah, so I'm fortunate enough to be working with and exclusively in the UK boarding school sector for the last 20 years. Okay, so just a little bit about who we are, what we do. I think that would be quite handy. Has that worked? Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm working. Yes, here we go. So the best way to describe, and the reason why we talk at lots of events, is Metropolis, and I appreciate that some of you may have not heard of the company before, Metropolis Education. We've been going actually 26 years, and we are like an association. We're like it. We're not an association as a rule. We operate at the speed of a business, which is quite a distinctive difference to an association and a business. But we are like an association, and we represent 200 UK boarding schools. All of our schools are on our website, ukboardingschools.com, and they're all in our handy guide as well. The number of schools that we currently represent is increasing as schools look more and more to the international markets. It's very fortuitous that you're all here today, because we're very, very keen to make lots and lots of new friends around the world. So we're also agents as well ourselves. We operate slightly differently with our schools. We don't charge commission, but because they already pay to be a member of the organisation, and we were voted in the according to this, the top boarding schools advisors, in the top 25 boarding schools advisors in the world. Okay, so the lady in the centre is my colleague Ruth. She's the one who should have been here, but she's too busy meeting King Charles. We do have a number of consultants, all who have been around for many, many years, but the dream team is in front of you now. We spend all of our time either visiting schools, talking with parents and families, or advising schools, or helping them achieve their goals in reaching the international market. So the international market now to the UK is hugely important. And to illustrate this fact, we also run our own events. And these are the events that we are currently running at the moment. We partner Alfie events. So you may have seen a Metropolis pavilion with lots of British flags, either in London, Frankfurt, and other events. So we always have a contingent of about 30 to 35 Metropolis schools. And the reason why it being a Metropolis school is important to an agent is I visit every single school. Okay, when I visit, it's almost like a mini inspection. We interview the head, we interview the pupils, we interview the boarding staff, the admissions, understand the processes, and make sure that the site and the school is somewhere where I would send my own children. We do the test of making sure that everything's nice and clean, looking around the windows, etc. So whenever you see a school that's a Metropolis school, you know that myself or Ruth have said they are a school you can recommend and feel comfortable with, recommend it to your families. So we are actually heading over to Mexico in October, Sao Paulo, Santiago in November, December, and we have lots of events in other parts of the world as well. This is because our schools are really excited about the international markets. Now, the problem that we have always, and the problem that agents have, no matter where they are in the world, is the ability to get to the UK and to visit the schools and be able to recommend them from a point of strength, so that a good point of knowledge. So we want to try and add to your knowledge. But what I would like to highlight to all your members here today who are listening is that we offer a service which is completely free, and all the agents get the commission. Okay, but this is really, really important. We have lots of agents around the world who physically cannot get to the UK on a regular basis and visit 200 schools. In fact, it would take quite a long time to do that. And we also understand the difficulty and you're supposed to be the market expert, and you're supposed to know everything there is about these schools. So we have crafted this free service for agents globally, where an agent can come to myself or my colleague Ruth and say, we have a parent who wants a certain type of school, academic. They want to go to Oxford. They want to have a golf academy. They want to have a science and STEM teaching provision. And those agents then just email us, this is the needs of the parent. Can you help me? And then I'll email back and say, okay, Alexandra, here's 5 schools that do exactly that within 24 hours. You know that I know, because I've been there and I've been and seen the schools. So you know that I know what I'm talking about. You can then also confidently either research those schools and confidently explain to the family that these are the schools that you are recommending to that family with confidence. So this is quite a new element of what we're doing. It's been really well received. So if you're ever unsure about a school, or you think you need to recommend a school, just email us or let us know, and we will tell you where that school fits into the bigger picture of the academic league tables, or whether they're well respected, whether they're a good school to deal with. So we act as your eyes and ears, and obviously we're an extension of your own company. For those agents that come over, we can help you with a familiarization trip. So if you come over to the UK, let us know. We will get a list of schools who would like to see you and help arrange the details for that and the logistics for that. If you prefer and you want to do a lot of the research yourself, then use our website, because you can, rather than Google, this is a specific website based on the needs of the parents. So you can say international baccalaureate or A-level, co-ed, in Scotland or in the southwest or near London that has a basketball academy and does rowing, and it will give you a list of those schools. And the great thing is, then, if you want to have details from those schools, you just put your information in once, and then any school after that, it will remember all the information. So it's actually quite a nice way for agents to use and get quite good information back quite quickly. We do regular newsletters. As I say, we've got Steve here today, which we're delighted with, who does regular training sessions on UKVI, and we have events around the world. So I hope that gives you some sort of flavour. I really wanted to let you know that this was a service we have extended to agents, that it's not a trick at all. You are more than welcome to pester us and send us emails of all your needs, and we will send you recommendations of schools, and it can happen really, really fast. Right, so let's look at the markets, everybody. So in the UK, there are, if you believe this, 1,395 private schools, but of that amount, just over 430 are boarding schools. Okay, the others are just purely day schools for the local British families, etc. That's a total in the whole of those schools. 7% of all school children in the UK go to independent schools, but as you because obviously people have to pay, the higher numbers, in fact the numbers are much higher when it goes towards sixth form. So year 12 and year 13, when they're doing their A levels or IB, a lot of parents wait, and then they will send their children, because of the cost, later on in the years. And where it gets what we call the business end, just before they go to university, they accelerate their learning, go to a private school, really learn more, and then hopefully they'll get their first pick of university. While I'm mentioning universities, independent schools and boarding schools, the pupils who go to them, about 91% get their first choice of university. So that's why a lot of the British families wait and then send them right at the end to the A levels and the IB, because they know that's a really good bet. They are most likely to get their first choice of universities. Recently, more and more of our families here in the UK and our international families are really interested in American universities. This has changed wholesale from before COVID. It was just a few, and now this is becoming quite a big thing here in the UK. So our schools are starting to learn and understand the processes that are dealing with the American universities, and now we have successfully got pupils going to Harvard, MIT, or the Ivy League, as well as other universities as well. So they've learned the processes, they're getting much stronger, and in fact, to the point now that of all those pupils who go to an overseas university rather than here in the UK, half of them will go to the States. So we're getting really good at it. So that's quite a good option for families to come via the British schools. Size of schools, so 50% of our schools are under 290 pupils, so they're not all these huge, demandingly full of thousands and thousands of pupils. And we have in total 61,000, nearly 62,000 international pupils, essentially, who are non-British. So it's quite a healthy amount. Now, the UK is really small. Okay. In fact, I think England can fit into Texas in America 4 times. So this is the reason why this looks a little bit odd, this one. But here are all the schools. There's no guessing where London is on this map. So you can see how it's really compact. And in fact, the furthest school away really would be King Charles's School, which is Gordonston, which is at the very, very top of Scotland, which would probably take around about from Heathrow another 2.5, 3 hours in total on the plane. So there's lots and lots of schools. They're really accessible. Obviously, southeast we have Heathrow Airport and Gatwick Airport and all the other London airports as well, which is where the main nucleus of all those schools are. No questions so far? I hope no. Just checking in. So here we go. So these are the sort of the wider numbers. 500,000 pupils are educated in those schools. We have very large contingent of day pupils, and 66,000 are boarders. Now, we do have here in the UK an increase in SEND, so special needs pupils who have mild needs of dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, and those kind of stresses. Now, I've left this on here because it can be seen as quite a negative. But since COVID, it's been really difficult for young people, and they've had lots and lots of challenges. And what our schools do particularly well is, because they're so professional and they're so good and experienced at dealing with lots of different types of pupils, but they're really, really good at dealing with pupils who have any kind of need, whether that be in the classroom or anywhere else. So I wanted just to illustrate that is growing here in the UK. It's growing in many of the nationalities and countries that we deal with, and our schools are really, really fit for purpose, and they can really help. If it's a massive need, if it's quite a strong need, then they won't be able to help. You need specialist provision. But equally, our schools are a very, very good option for those who have had a difficult time through their teenage years or out of COVID, and get them away from their phones and that kind of thing. Okay. So the traditional boarding schools market, the international makeup is growing. Now, we did some research on this. We really wanted to try and understand just how international the schools were becoming. And over half of our schools said that 61% of their boarders were international. So what this illustrates is first of all, the school's willingness to welcome more and more nationalities. Obviously, this isn't just that's in the boarding, so they do have the day school element as well. So you could have another 1,000 pupils as well from Britain who are in the school. So that's a really quite an interesting development. 24 nationalities or more. And before anybody asks, yes, they do look at the language barriers. So when we say nationalities, we don't want too many Spanish speakers in one year group or in one boarding house. We don't want too many Mandarin, because what will happen is they're there to learn English and to be really, really good at English. And if they've got all their friends around them, there's a strong chance that they will start to speak Mandarin or Spanish again and go backwards. So when it comes to managing the flow of the number of pupils, we do take into account the languages that they're speaking as well, so that there's a good balance right across the year group and the boarding houses as they go through. It's also, they don't like any of the pupils not speaking English anyway, so they'll get told off if they'll get detention or have to go and clean the windows or something if they're speaking their native tongue. So that's just another illustration. The biggest number of nationalities of any one of our schools is 61, just to give you some idea of scope. And we at Metropolis Education are dealing with 140 different nationalities at the moment. Now, one of the big benefits, everybody, one of the big benefits to your families will be the network when they leave a boarding school, the network. So when they leave our schools and they go on to university and they go into the business world, and no matter where they're from, if they suddenly get a job in Singapore or in Hong Kong or in Dubai or in Frankfurt, because of their education that they had here in the UK and at boarding school, they will have people who they will know in those regions. they will have the alumni association who work with the school. They help the pupils around the world. And if there's somebody saying, I've got a job in Tokyo, I'm here for a year, does anybody know anybody who could help me? They will get the alumni association from school to help them, and that person will start their new job, and they'll have a support because they have this amazing global network. And I think that's a really big motivator for families as the world sort of gets smaller and the business world is more global. I think that's a really huge benefit to a lot of the families out there. My next slide is just to illustrate one of the reasons why a lot of our mentality has changed globally to more internationalization is our main markets, Hong Kong and China, are starting to drop. And so that has driven the UK's need to look more wholesalely at international markets. I am leading on to something here, folks, in terms of how this is going to affect you. So the main markets, the emerging markets that we're looking at the moment, the US, we've got Nigeria, we've just come back from South Africa, and obviously Russia, Spain, Germany, Italy, they're sort of our more traditional markets. And anywhere that's grey is an area that we are focusing on. And interestingly, we had some Canadian pupils recently whose parents said that their Canadian school was too international for them. So they decided to bring them to the UK, which I thought was a sort of a victim of their own success. The other really important thing, everybody here, is there are quite a lot of options for your families. Okay, it's really not a question of a parent sending their child to Britain for a really, really long period of time, and they're going to feel really emotional and really sad about it. There are many, many options now at school. So we have from full boarding, which is as you would expect, you live full time in school, you do your certificates, you do your education. But we also have weekly boarding, and that's for mainly a lot of the UK pupils do that, and flexi boarding. We have our day pupils, but we also have an independent education that goes from the age of 4 to 21. So a lot of our London colleges actually have extended programs that go on beyond the age of 18, which a lot of people don't realise. To do a certificate of education, it's got to be 2-year or 1-year course, but believe it or not, you can come for 2 terms, 1 term, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, and we even have schools that will allow a pupil to come for a week. Okay, so this is quite an interesting development where schools are allowing pupils to do this, because it means that pupils from all around the world can come to the UK, have this amazing experience, live in a school, join the classroom, be involved in art and drama, all the sports, maths, English, geography, history, everything, just for half a term, and then come home. Their English language would have increased quite dramatically, I would suspect. Their cultural immersion into the British culture would have been very interesting for them. They'll have done all the weekend activities, probably gone to London, probably gone to the local supermarkets and Starbucks, and experienced all the things that the British kids do as well. And that's quite a new development and quite an interesting option, because a lot of you are really far away from us. You are a really long way away. And it may be that a parent is not sure 100% on a particular school. They're not sure whether their child will fit in to the boarding environment. Well, they have an option now to actually try that situation out for themselves. They can send their child to us for 6 weeks or a term. And if they really, really love it, then they can stay. And that is an amazing option. It's like buying a brand new car and just having a little test drive for 6 weeks. So it actually works out really, really well. And that's quite a good emotional safety net for the family as well, because it is a huge decision for families. Okay. So what are the main things that families are looking for? What we do well here in the UK is our academics. We are, our first choice of university is because the academics are so strong. We have high quality teaching because they're private schools. They employ the strongest teachers, and more often than not, the class size will be small. So typically speaking, for a GCSE English class or geography class, you're looking at 14 to 16 pupils. And at A levels for maths, physics, or further maths, it could be as little as 3 or 4. So that's really quite specialized teaching, and quite a good value for the pupil. They get all the teaching to themselves. So that's quite extraordinary. The pastoral side as well, for those who have children out there, children, when you're the parent, it's quite difficult to get them to do what you want them to do. When you're professional and you're working in a boarding school, they don't have that emotion. I can always look after my friends' children easier than I can do my own. They always listen to me, and the same kind of rule applies. These are professionals. They deal with thousands and thousands of pupils, particularly at those difficult years as well, as they become young adults, and all the drama and the issues of being stressed and telephones and having friends or not having friends. So that what we call is pastoral care is really first rate. And the other thing that I'm sure you're more than aware of is the great facilities. I went to a school the other day, and they had a swimming pool, and it was indoor. Okay. And as I was walking along, there were these little 3-year-olds, and they were running all the way along in the swimming pool. And I couldn't quite work it out because normally a swimming pool has a shallow end and a deep end. And what the school had done is have this swimming pool which moves the water up and down. So they can do a swimming gala where you can dive in and have your races, but also they can move the floor of the swimming pool up so the water's just that deep. And they have kindergarten kids playing in the water and running around. And that's just one illustration of some of the great facilities. You'll see climbing walls. At the Olympics, we had lots of the Olympic teams were staying in boarding schools because they had full running tracks. The science and classrooms, the pupils can write on their desk and it goes on the wall in the classroom. They have all the technology, Microsoft schools. So the dramas, the auditoriums can be 600 to 1,000 seaters. They'll put productions on 3 or 4 times a year. People will pay to come and see those productions for drama. They'll do art exhibitions, music concerts every week. And that's because they're very fortunate. And sometimes the pupils don't know how lucky they are. But a lot of the schools, I'm sure you're aware, they are extraordinary. They're almost that university kind of level where it's elite level. And because they have these great facilities, they do attract some of the very best pupils around the world. They will attract Olympians, international golfers, international soccer players, international swimmers, and so on and so forth. People who are going to the right conservatoires for music, people who are at that upper level, pop stars and so on and so forth. So they're going to be amongst some really huge talents as well. I've just seen my next slide, and I really must explain what this is because this might be a little bit alien to everybody. So these are the great British people love baked beans. I don't know whether that everybody understands baked beans. We have them with breakfast. We can have them in the evening, and they're in the supermarket. There are like a whole aisle will be dedicated to baked beans if you've been to the supermarkets here in the UK. And what this illustrates is the difficulty in choosing a school, because all the schools, bearing in mind everything I've just said, all the schools sound and look the same. And it's just like tins and tins of baked beans. No matter which tins they are, they all say the same, do the same. And it's really hard to make the difference between the two. So they will all say things like this. We have 100% pass rate to Russell Group universities. We have great facilities. Of course they do. We do music, drama, and art. Well, yeah, they are excellent at pastoral care, looking after pupils. Well, we hope so, you know. They do. Some of these schools do 100 different extracurricular activities a week. lifelong friendships, and the Good Schools Guide says, or they have a rural location, they're caring. So that's really the main stick of this, is the difficulty in choosing the school, which is why we provide the support and the guide and all this, because each school is different. It really is. And it's like buying a house. Every school smells different, feels different, the pupils behave different, the teachers are different. And that's really hard to put into a marketing materials. And that's the challenge that every agent faces, is navigating the difference between the pupils, the schools, because they all say and sound and do the same things. I think I've come to the end of this, Liz, actually, but I can happily just continue to talk. Do we have any questions, just to sort of see if anybody's got anything they want to ask about other academics, or about do they have favorite schools they want to ask about an individual school, or about the locations as well, because I just saw you on mute then. But one of the things I must say is, for those who have been to the UK, a parent saying they want a school near London because it's easier to get to, that doesn't work, because where I live in South London, nothing's easy to get to. So the logistics of being near London, in terms of the child coming and going from home to school, etc., is never quite as easy. So again, that's another area of consideration in terms of where that school is, because actually Scotland may be an easier option logistically, in terms of getting to and from certain places. I just wanted to say that because I drive sort of about 8 miles to my office, and it took me an hour. So it's a bit like driving in Mexico City, I think. So just to illustrate that, the distance doesn't necessarily equal time, which is important. But sorry, Leslie.
Thank you, Dominic. I don't know if any of the attendees have any questions. Please feel free to raise your hand, open your mic if you want to address anything to Dominic. Go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, so I'll be the first one here. Actually, my question is, I think it has already been answered, but I just wanted to make it clear so we can really also share the right information to our agents here in the association. It's more on a commercial side, on how we as agents really relate to UK boarding schools or metropolitan education. From what I understood, we should connect in a partnership agreement with Metropolis Education, and then all these schools, they are partnered up with you, and then, so the question is, looking, briefly in your website in the list of schools, I see that I already have some direct agreements with some of those schools, who give me a certain price and a certain commission. If I would make business through you with those schools, I would get the same pricing, the same potential scholarships, the same commission as well. Is that correct or not?
Yeah, so our service is just to help you with the recommendation. So can you tell me which school does IB, basketball, drama, and has a golf academy? So we can help you with that. If the schools we recommend to you, so I would just email that back to you, Alexander, and go, here's the 5 schools, and I leave you to it. I'm just the person who has visited the schools for you. So this is independent. If you wanted to have a contract with that school, I can help you. We are just here to advise and provide options. There's no contracts. We're just friends of our friends at Belter and the extended. And if they want us to help recommend a school, if you're really experienced, then you may know quite a lot of the answers. But if you have a tricky one where somebody wants wheelchair access, and there's some quite interesting, and you find it quite a challenge, then just email me, and we will find and recommend some schools that fit that. We don't have any interface with the school or with the parent. It's just with you. And I would say, here's 3 schools that fit that problem. You then make contact with the schools. If they don't have a contract with you, an agency agreement, and you're having a difficulty and they're one of my schools, let me know, because we can tell them about our friendships and Belter, and we can help achieve that far quicker. And as you know, each contract can be different from school to school. At the moment, we're recommending our schools pay at least 10 or 15% on the first year, and if they can, 5% on the second year. We do have schools that do 10 for every single year as well, and that's just because they're in a competitive region and they want to attract more international pupils. But if you ever want to have help with either getting agreeing an agreement with one of our schools, we can help you, introduce you, and make that an easier process. Particularly if you're thinking about recommending a family, you just say, "I know Dominic at Metropolis, so we're working with them," and that will help move the position far quicker because they know us really well. And the idea is we make it easier for you. That's ultimately what we want to do. If you're unsure about which school to recommend, we'll tell you. If you have a school that you want to recommend or a problem with a school, come to us and we'll try and help you as well. If you're not getting paid commission from one of our schools, let us know. If they haven't paid their bill, then let us know, and we can fight the fight from the other side as well for you. So we're just here trying to promote the Metropolis schools, trying to make our relationships with agents better, try and make you make your job easier to recommend to schools. But I mean, everybody's experienced, they'll know quite a lot of the schools, but there are quite a lot of schools out there, my tins of baked beans. So that's a good question.
Yeah, that's actually, thank you very much for, it's so, I really see this as a very nice opportunity for us, because at the same time, we do have some of those direct agreements already. We end up having usually a very small portfolio, because we cannot really hold, 200 agreements at the same time. So knowing that we can have this kind of a middle door open with you in all those schools, it really changes the reality of our portfolio for UK boarding in UK from night to day. So I really think it's going to be something very useful to most of us here. Thank you very much. I really understand how to step forward now. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And you can get temporary agreements as well, if as well. So that's quite an interesting development. And we have quite a number of, just so you know as well, we have quite a number of summer schools that we work with. A lot of our schools now are making their own summer schools. So we tend to get, I'm dealing with an organization at the moment who are trying to place 925 Chinese pupils into summer schools, and they've given me an allocation of 20 per school. So I'm now working to try and get enough schools that can take 20 for each one. And it's quite easy. I just email them all and say, right, who's got availability in July? They send me their availability, and I just work with the agent to get that. And the commission is done without me. I'm just trying to help facilitate. So we have lots of summer schools as well, folks. We know that's quite popular. Ever increasing popularity as well. Different commission.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dominic. We do have a few questions from Anna.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to word it in two. So the first one is, what's the student ratio to teachers? Probably, I assume. One of it is covered, I think, a little bit in this slide, but she's asking if there are any extracurricular activities. So I don't know if you could expand a little bit on that.
So in my book here, it gives all the pupil ratios. They're normally 6-to-1 or 8-to-1. So really specialist. And the extracurricular activities, did you say? What are they?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So there's normally our schools per week will do anywhere between 40 and 100. So there is something that go from chess club to other sports, rock climbing, canoeing. You can do extra mathematics and science association and clubs in terms of more academically led stuff. You can do axe throwing, shooting, archery, horse riding. The problem that we've found, particularly with our Mexican pupils, I've seen them, they sign up for everything. They want to do everything. So they're in a drama class and they're supposed to be doing some sports, and they're actually also supposed to be in another class, because they just really just love life. And you can hear the Mexican pupil girls particularly coming before you even see them, because they're just lovely and noisy and bouncy. And that's the difficulty is, from when they wake up at 7 a.m. to when they finish at 10 p.m., they are busy all day, and there is something for them to do all day. And the choices and options are just amazing. They can go in the swimming pool, they can go to the gym. If they want to go to Starbucks and they're old enough, they can go to Starbucks. Also, just in case anybody hasn't asked this yet, more and more of our schools now are limiting mobile phone usage. They're getting quite tough on the pupils to not have access during the school day and later on, but there are exceptions for our international borders, so they can phone home and make good contact at the right times. But again, that's to help their well-being and their welfare, because the phones can be quite dangerous, particularly post-COVID. So again, having a phone-free zone means they can play games, they can do board games, they can do other things, and not feel as if they're missing out on social media, because obviously it's not considered to be too healthy. So does that answer that question? Extracurricular?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. There is another one about, are there any additional requirements for students coming from Latin America? I'm guessing academic speaking. If there's anything extra that they would have to fill as a student who's planning to go?
No, so I mean the process is relatively simple. If they're coming for a short term, it's just a question of the understanding the level of English, and that's so they can put them in the right classroom, so they can enjoy the experience of being in the right classroom. If they're coming for longer, or if they want to go to an academic school, there'll be academic tests that they'll have to sit, and an interview as well with the school. So it's not completely all about the academics, because if somebody is going to be the next a real leader of people and has a really strong personality, the school will think that's a really good thing. If they haven't got the best maths, that's okay. If they're going to lead young people and is really inspirational, then they'll balance that off against the academics. So it isn't all about what they do in the classroom. In fact, it's ultimately isn't. It's about what kind of person they are, how they fit in with the atmosphere and the fabric of the school, and how they can grow as individuals. And in fact, half of the schools we deal with, about 100 schools, they'll be completely non-selective. So there are huge opportunities for pupils to access really, really good boarding schools outside of being an academic, if that makes sense. So it's really, really easy to access. It's really important for people to know.
Thank you, Dominic. And I think two more questions that we have is, this is one question we sometimes get asked by parents, is how does a boarding school help students in the transition to higher education? And why should the UK be preferred over other countries, especially for boarding schools?
Okay, let's go with the second one first. Why the UK is the best? Well, there are many reasons for this, and I don't quite know where to start, quite frankly. Apart from the fact that obviously we've been doing this for thousands of years, the architecture of the buildings that we have, the pupils are very lucky because of the way the architecture is, and it does get a little bit like Harry Potter in many of the instances. The international makeup of the schools, the network that they have, the quality of the teaching, the academics, the weather, the British weather. You can't put a price on the British weather, of course. So the outcomes. We always talk about outcomes. The first choice of universities. They don't just teach. How can I put this? when you meet an independently educated pupil, you can see them before they even speak to you. The way they walk towards you, the way they shake your hand, the way they have the eye contact, the way they carry their own posture, and the way they carry themselves. The way they can hold a conversation about many different topics is because that's the what we call the deportment, the way they've been educated, not just in a class, but behaviorally they've been taught how to conduct themselves. So it's not just about I've learnt maths today and I'm going to pass an exam. It's the constant understanding of other cultures as well, conflict negotiation, the quality of the facilities, and it's really safe. So we know that stories behind all the American schools. Our schools, I mean, we don't have any gun crime. Okay, we don't have gun crime here in the UK. Most of our police force don't carry guns; they carry a little stick, which is on a telescope. Okay, so we don't have guns. You will at the big airports and things like that, but most of the time, a normal police officer will have nothing on them. So crime is where our schools are is really low. It's really safe. Some schools have gates, but most of our schools don't because you can't find them because it's really safe and secure. They are in the middle of the countryside, and they're really hard to find. So the safety, security, and one of the big things nowadays, I think, is the health and well-being of the pupils. Since COVID, our teachers and our pastoral teams, they are masters of health and well-being and mindfulness. They can identify issues way before parents. They can see it a mile off. And I think that quality of understanding of young people is second to none. And this is the reason why we are the #1 educators in the world, right? I mean, this is why we have the best outcomes. I understand that it's easier to send a child to Canada. I understand that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Because the opportunities they will have in a British school is times 10 of that they would have in a Canadian school. And I won't even include the Americans, quite frankly, because it's just too dangerous.
Thank you, Dominic. I think those are all the questions we have, but I don't see any more raised hands or any more questions in the chat. So I think we could pass it on to Steve, if that's all right.
Okay. Are you going, Steve? Are you going to share yours, Steve, from there, or do you want me to? He's got to put his off mute first.
Let's see if I can share my screen.
Okay.
Host is disabled participant screen sharing. So I've been disabled. I can't share.
Okay. Liz will sort that out for you now. Just whilst we're sorting that out, Steve, I was just saying I'm really glad that you're here because from the outside it looks like the UK boarding schools, Britain are trying to make it really difficult for families to access our offerings with visas and all these kind of chats and immigration kind of centres, but it's not quite as that's why I'm glad you're here because it's not quite as difficult as people may think. Hopefully you'll explain.
Yeah, no, cool, 100%.
Yeah. Sorry, Mary-Glenn, I don't think I have the permission. Could you do Steve co-host?
Let me can I do that? Can I?
I don't know.
I'll tell you what, Steve, I'll just share mine.
Is that right?
Yeah, just say go, Dominic, when you want me to let me just get this one on here. Sorry everybody, it's happening in real life. Let's get this on here for you. Right. Is that, can anybody see that or not? No, I've lost it.
Not yet, Dominic.
Sorry, yes, there he is, share screen. Here we go. Right. Sorry about that. So that right.
Yeah,
wrong
good
one.
to go.
That's this one here.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, if you can just go down that page, thanks. The next one.
Okay.
So I'm just going to try and keep it brief and short, and I'm sure that you might have more questions that I can be more specific with, but just a brief overview on navigating UK admissions and compliance. Yeah, I'm the MD, Managing Director of Sable Education, and I've worked for many years with schools here in the UK and making sure, one, that they're compliant for any home office inspectors that come to the school, and two, to make sure that
Sorry. That's my fault. Sorry, that's my technology. 1 second.
no worry,
I-
Dom. And
sorry.
two, to make sure that the schools can acquire visas for the students coming. And as Dominic said earlier on, some students only want to come for a short period of time, 1 term, maybe 1.5 terms, and they can, especially from Mexico, come as a visitor. And the compliance around coming to a school as a visitor to study. So the Home Office has got specific rules and regulations of what people can do from around the world. So I'll just briefly go through it just to give you an idea. Thanks, Dom. If you can go down a page there. This is just a brief overview of what a school has to worry about the whole time to be compliant with the Home Office. And the areas in gold are just what I think concerns you guys today. What documents are needed to come across and to get a visa to come to school here, how they checked and what needs to be kept by the school, how the students are recruited by the school, and what assessments have they gone through to come to the school, and what agents did they use or third party to get the student to come to their school. So that's the areas that we would be chatting about today. The rest of that you can see, and you can have these slides if need be, but the rest is what the school would be inspected on when the Home Office, the UK Home Office, comes to inspect the school for compliance purposes. Thanks, Dom. If you can just go down. Thanks. So every school has to, once a year, they have to submit an agents list to the Home Office to say these are the agents we're using from around the world, and they need to be have done their due diligence on the agent and the agency as a whole, and they have to prove to the Home Office that they've done their due diligence and that this agent is a proper agent that won't be trafficking students around the world. The UK do have a lot of students that have been trafficked into the UK, and unfortunately, a lot of the time it comes via agents where, and it's an unfortunate thing to say, but the agents buy the students from their parents and then they traffic them into the UK. So this is why the UKVI, the Home Office, is very strict on making sure these schools are compliant. But they don't want to stop international students obviously coming to the UK. So that's where we come into it, to make it as easy as possible. We work with Dominic and the Metropolis group quite closely, just to make things easy and straightforward, and so that you can get your students in. From that perspective, the education provider, sorry, Alexa, stop. The education provider needs to provide the Home Office with this list: your agent's name, the contact address, contact email, telephone numbers, the key contact's name, the website address, what region and markets they work in, when did the partnership, the contract start with this agent, and when does it end, and what commission are you paying, etc. So what they look for, just to be alert out there, is that if an agent is asking for a 40% first year and 20% second year, then the Home Office doesn't really like this, because normally that agent might, after 2 years, start moving that student to another school that offers 40 and 20, and it's for, I heard Dominic say early on about the well-being and safeguarding of students. Now, if that student's moving schools every 2 years so that the agent can make commission, that's not in the best interest of the student. So that's why 10-15% schools are looking at offering those sort of percentages first year, and second year the 5%, etc., just like Dominic said earlier on. And those are the reasons, because they're quite scrutinized by the Home Office. And if you're a sub-agent of another agency that's worldwide, they need to check as to where you're operating and again, due diligence on that. So this is becoming more and more prevalent for the schools because on the CAS, which will be issued, you have to have a CAS, a Confirmation of Acceptance of Studies, CAS, for a student to get a visa. And now on that, we think in the future that the school will have to put the agent's name on that list going forward. It's not just yet, but we think that's what they're going to be doing. And then making sure that the school has done their due diligence on this agent to allow the student to come on in. So that's just a background on what schools need to do for agents. Thanks, Dom. And then what every school has to keep on record. So you might find, as Dom said, some of you are very experienced and know exactly what's going on. But when an inspector arrives at the school, they need to do right to study checks on every student that's come in that's not British passport holder or an Irish passport holder. Anybody else with any other passport, they need to have these documents on record. So a valid visa. And if they're coming for pre-sessional, so some students come early in July, August to learn English before they actually start in September, and that's called a pre-sessional. And then a copy of passports, a vignette, which is a sticker that gets put into the passport, and it's a temporary visa to get you into the country, into the UK. And then you'll be getting a plastic BRP, which is a biometric resident permit, which will be at the school ready for the student to collect when they do arrive, and that'll be their actual visa. And that is going to be changing at the end of this year. December 31st is the last time that they are issuing vignettes and BRPs. Everything from January onwards is going to be a digital visa. They have started that with the European students, anyone from the EU. You don't have to go to a biometric appointment or anything like that. You do everything on your phone. You take selfies with your phone and you go onto the laptop and you do your visa application totally remote. You don't need to go to a visa center, and you will get it digitally linked to your passport. So when the student arrives at immigration, they scan the passport and it'll come up on their screens that the student has got a visa linked to this school online, a digital visa. So they're doing away with the little plastic biometric resident cards and the vignette, which is that sticker in your passport, the temporary visa. So that's sometimes great because students lose their BRPs. And then it costs £500 to £1,000 to replace the BRP, and they can't travel while they haven't got it, so it causes a lot of headaches. So we think it's heading in the right direction, which is great. PCL, which is a parental consent letter. So both parents, biological parents, which you'll see translated birth certificate. So both those biological parents have to sign this parental consent letter to allow the student to go to the UK to go and study at the school. If there isn't the two biological parents, there might be a divorce, there might be a death in the family, then we would need further documentation, a death certificate or divorce papers or sole custody papers, those type of things. And as I said earlier on, a CAS, which is a Confirmation of Acceptance of Studies. So those are the documentations you'd have to have before you can apply for the visa. And the school has to hold these on record. So when they get inspected, it's there for the inspectors to see that they do have all these documents. But once you've got those, it's very simple and easy. And we don't have too many refusals on any visa applications, which is great. The other students they call is students subject to immigration control. So that's the student who doesn't want to come for a year and just wants to come as a visitor to test the school out and what we call as a taster program. They will come as a visitor. And from Mexico, you can come on in as a visitor and get a stamp at immigration at the UK. That'll be your 6 months visitor stamp, and you can study at a school for up to 6 months. What you can't do is go out again and come back in and start studying for another 6 months. You're not allowed to do that. You can only come in once off as a visitor to study for a 6 month period, up to a 6 month period. And the 6 month period starts from the day you arrive in the UK, not the day you start school. So that's a great way, as Dominic said earlier on, with some students and parents wanting just to see what it's like in the UK, maybe for one term to learn a bit of English. And from my experience, because I've worked in schools quite a lot, normally they come and then they love it here and they ask their parents, please, can I stay for the whole year? And then they get converted from a visitor's visa. In December, they go back home to Mexico or wherever their home country is, and they apply for a child student visa, and then they come back on that visa to finish the rest of the year. That is the student subject to immigration control. One area is called a visitor's visa. The others, they could be diplomats or foreign military come into the country too with their children, and they can come and study too. And so just the very bottom one there, sometimes there's delayed visas. You'll see on one of my next slides is that the normal reason for a delayed visa is the IHS, which is the medical aid part of it, the international health surcharge that has to be paid by every student that's coming onto a visa to study at a school. And that is charged per year that the student is staying at the school. But the Home Office and government associations are all very clever. So if you're coming for a year, they always give you your visa. So if you finish the school 7th of July or sometime in July, your visa is always valid for another 4 months until November. It's just how the visas are valid as a child student visa. But they give you those 4 months, but they forget to tell you that they've charged you an extra half a year on your IHS fees. So instead of paying 1 year's fees, you've got to pay 1.5 years fees of the IHS. So if you pay the incorrect amount, that's normally why the visa has been delayed, because they'll be emailing the parents or the agents to say you haven't paid enough IHS fees. And because it's coming from a government email address, it's called no-reply. Normally it goes into your junk or your spam folder and you don't see that email requesting this, and so that delays visas sometimes. So that's just one area just to be aware of. Thanks, Dom. If you can just go down the page. So again, they have just changed the pricing structure for it, which is a bit of a pain too, because it's gone up quite a lot. The way you guys are it's valid for you guys is that the actual visa fee, the government visa fee, has gone up to 490 across the board. It used to be £363 just to get your visa as a government fee. But if you were overseas, so if you were applying from Mexico, then it would have been 363, in country 490. Now they've just gone across the board and say the government fee for the visa is £490. So that's that fee. Then as you see, the next one, IHS, which is the health surcharge fee, and it's discounted for students under 18s. That's gone from 470 per year to 776 per year now. So if you've got a student that wants to come do their A-levels for 2 years, they're going to be charged 776 times by 2 plus the £490. So you're in for about nearly £2,000 just to have a visa for 2 years as a child student visa. And that's across the board for everyone in the world at the moment. So yeah, that's just those fees. Thanks, Dom. Then just very briefly, a school gets inspected every year online, and they have to worry about 3 things. First, if they have any visa refusals, it counts against their sponsor license. And so that's why the school doesn't want any refusals on any of their visas, and that's why sometimes the schools utilize companies like us to do their visas for the parents and the agents, just to make sure that there are no refusals, because once you go over that 10% mark, you would fail this, which is a basic compliance assessment, and then they have the potential that could take their license away from that school. Now, the school has to have a license to have international students. If they don't have this license, no international students can come study with them. And so to be commercially viable, these schools need to have the sponsor license, so they do not need to fail this annual check that the Home Office does on them. The enrollment rate is, if you have a student that wants to come to you, you give them a visa, you get them the visa, and then they just never come to school. They decide not to come to the school. They didn't enroll, so that goes against the school. And then a course completion rate, which means they come to do A levels maybe, and after 1 year they leave the school. Now they go to another school or they go back home because they didn't like it here. That affects the course completion rate, and the school is penalized for those students too. So they are three categories that the school really worries about and that gets assessed every year for them. Thanks, Dom. So just quickly, it's quite a busy slide, but just so that you understand again why schools are asking these questions and going through it, is on the recruitment process. They need to find out the agent's details, agent's contract, the commission paid, the due diligence done on agents, what was the role of the agent in recruiting the student. Are the parents paying monthly, termly, or full in advance their fees? The school has to do the due diligence on their parents to see if the parents can afford the school fees. What are their occupations? They don't like a businessman or businesswoman or business owner, because you might be a business owner of trafficking students around the world. So they need a bit more information on things like that. And then what did the school do during the admissions and recruitment process? Like Dom said, some schools are non-selective, so they don't have to do any sort of tests or anything like that. Some schools are selective. But how did they assess the student? Did they get past school reports? And how did they assess the student for English? Is this a genuine student coming to the UK to study, or are they just using this visa to get into the UK and disappear? And what did they do? Did they do an online interview? What did you do during the online interview? Did you check their passport? Did they hold up their passport during the interview to check that that student was the genuine student sitting in front of you, because you haven't met them face to face? What type of exams did you get them to take, if they did take exams, if they were needed? So those type of things. If there's a student that's over 18 years old, they need to do a special English test called IELTS to prove their English to be able to get a student visa. And then who made the offer? It's got to be someone from the school. Where did the funds come from? So if the parents are paying the first year's fees, whether it be monthly, termly, or annually, where did those funds come from? Because it can only come from the parent's bank account or the student's bank account. If it comes from a third party's bank account, like an agent's bank account, why is this third party paying for this student to come to the UK? Because that's a red flag in their eyes that they could be trafficked and not a genuine student. So these are the type of things that they look for, and confirming that all the parents are the biological parents, and if not, more documentation, like I said earlier on. And the signatures on the contracts, are those the actual signatures for the biological parents? And then obviously each international student needs a guardian, and that's becoming more and more prevalent here. Who's this guardian? Are they affiliated with a professional body like Aegis, or are they friends of the family? And has there been safeguarding done to make sure that this guardian can be a guardian and look after the student while they're in the UK? So the school has to do all these sort of things from there. Thanks, Dom. I think I'm getting pretty close to the end. It was on the front page of the newspaper, of the Times paper in 2019. There were 12 students trafficked into the UK via various ways, and So that's why the Home Office, those 12 students have never been found. They've disappeared into the system, and they've been trafficked into the UK. And that's just one. We hear about this sort of every month. So that's why the schools sometimes are quite strict and want a lot of information from you before the students actually arrive. So thanks, Dom. Next page, I think there. This again, record keeping duties. So I've been through all of this. Sometimes the bottom one is just what I wanted to pick up on. If they're not boarding and they need private foster care, there's a lot more that goes into a day student or living under private foster care. It's possible, but it is really scrutinized by the Home Office as to where they're staying, how they're staying, those type of things. So full boarding at a boarding school is always much easier for the school and for the Home Office. They really prefer that. Thanks, Dom. I think that was one of the last pages. I've been through all this. What I did mention there, I've highlighted the third from bottom page is visitors, short-term students. They're only allowed to study a taster program. They can't come here and say, I'm here for 6 months and I'm doing a GCSE course, or I'm here to start my A levels, but I'm only here as a visitor, because then they will be turned away at the border post. They can come as a visitor to do a taster program and see if they like it, those type of things. And then they're more than welcome to be in the UK to study. Thank you, Dom. That was me, very short and sweet, a lot of information, and I might not have covered everything, but the Home Office is making it easier for students to come and study, and trying to get as many routes as possible. And as Dom said, if you need anything from their side, Dom can advise, or I'm always around to be able to advise on any visa or compliance scenarios for any students coming in, because what I find is it's the most stressful thing for a student. You've chosen your school, you've done everything. Now, can I get my visa, or will it be refused? And so for parents and the student, it becomes a stressful scenario to get that done. But we'll make it as easy as possible for you and get it done with the least amount of stress. And we don't charge parents anything at all either. We're there to help the parents.
It made it sound so scary, didn't he? But it is about the child's welfare, which is the most important thing. So those are the rules that we have to abide by. But yeah, that's why we have him, because it's just too complicated, right?
Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't know if there are any questions. We do have some in the chat, but I don't know if there are any in the audience who would like to open their mic or anything. If not, I can read it quickly, Steve, to you. I think the first one is, are there any options for renewal or extension should the student change their mind and stay longer without going back? I think it's to their home countries, not the UK. So if they wish to stay, can they do it while they're in the UK?
If they've come as a visitor, unfortunately, the rules are, as a visitor, you've got to go back to your home country, and it should take 15 working days maximum to get your visa. And that's why if they do decide to stay, it's normally over the Christmas period. They go back first week of December, go home, and we line up everything so that they straight away get their visa by the time they need to be back at school on the 4th, 5th, 6th of January. But unfortunately, no, they cannot do on a visitor's visa. If they're on an existing visa at a school and they're changing schools, then they can apply in country to go to this other school.
Perfect. The second is, does the school provide support or resources for students experiencing visa issues or challenges?
So it all depends on the schools. Most schools do. A lot of schools are like, we are contracted to schools. So any student that's come in there that needs any visas or advice, they will pass them on to us. And we, as I say, we don't charge the parents or students. Other schools try and do it in-house, and they've got people in-house that can advise them, or they use different companies like mine that would also help them out. So most schools would be absolutely be able to help them out. But again, I will get hold of Dom, and then Dom can send it through to us or whoever else can help. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. The next one is, are there any specific rules or regulations regarding travel abroad while on a student visa or in a visitor's visa in case of Mexican students who can stay up to 6 months?
No other rules, especially Mexican. If you're wanting to go to Europe, you'll be fine going to Europe. But if you're on it all depends on your trip that you're going to on that specific country. So if you on a child student visa or a visitor's visa in the UK, and you might want to go all of a sudden to China on a holiday or something like that, you would have to see the specific rules for entering China on your home passport, which would be a Mexican passport. And if you can do that, then there wouldn't be any restrictions. So I don't see, especially from Mexico, it's quite nice where you have most of Europe available to you to be traveling without any visa implications.
Thank you, Steve. Related to the previous question, we said also a Mexican student can stay up to 6 months. We have had cases where once at the border before entering, they stamp the passport with less time than that. What to do in that case?
So just, I lost you there. So they were stamped less than 6 months. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, sometimes we have had agents in which they say at the immigration at the border, they usually put like handwriting saying you can step up to 10 days, 2 weeks instead of 6 months.
Okay, so that shouldn't happen, but the immigration officers obviously ask questions, and whatever has been answered. So sometimes, like I said, if a student answers and says, "I'm here to do my GCSEs or my A levels," and then the immigration officer will think, "You can't do that as a visitor here, so I'm only going to give you 6 days or 10 days or whatever it is, and then you've got to be out," because so that normally is only because of what has been asked by the inspector on that day, the immigration officer, and what the answer is. A lot of the time, I don't know if they go through the e-gates, then you're pretty clear. You're good to go. And so if I was a parent, I'd be telling my children, head for the e-gates, try not go to an immigration officer. But sometimes they are down and not working, so you have to go to an immigration officer.
Thank you. We do have another question. This is something that we have been asked at the British Council, especially for visitors. You were mentioning about the electronic application. And we have had comments from Argentinian agents, especially because they do require a visitor's visa for the UK. So if there is any timetable set for the electronic visitor visa, will it also be January, or do you have any updates on that?
They haven't updated us yet on anything like that, but we're presuming that we've got actually a conference where the head of the UKVI is coming to give us a talk on the 16th of May. So we'll know more on the 16th of May, which I think is next week sometime. But they have said to us in general, 1st of January, everything's going digital. That's including visitors' visas. It's just, again, we just the rules normally are with the airlines. The airlines need to prove that they can let a person on the plane. Now, if it's digital, how's the airline going to prove that this digital visa is on there? So these are the things we're asking our Home Office to say, this sounds great. It's digital and it's going to be so much easier. But please explain to me, if I'm at a small airport somewhere in the world that maybe doesn't have technology to see my digital visa, how am I going to get on the plane? So that's just what we're asking them. But they say, no, it's going to be good to go. So cross fingers.
So hopefully. Thank you, Steve. I don't think we have any other questions. So I would really like to thank you both. So really, really thank you for sharing their expertise and valuable insights with us today. Thank you for all of the agents that decided to join today as well. And please stay tuned because we're going to have more sessions in the coming months that we will be launching together with Delta. So without any further comments, I don't know if Dominique or Steve, you have anything else to mention? If not, we would like to thank everybody.
just hope to see some of you in Sao Paulo when we come in the end of November. You'll get a big
Oh,
invite to
okay.
some we'll do a drinks reception for everybody. You're more than welcome to come, and I hope the weather will be good for us as well. But you'll see the marketing will start, and we'll invite everybody to come and say hello.
You're coming to Mexico as well, right, Dominic?
Yeah, in October. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
great,
thank
thank
you.
you so much, everybody. Please, if you need anything, you want the guide, I'm online, Dominic Moon, let me know, and I will be there as your servant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you from my side too.
Thank you.
It's great. Thanks.
Thank
Yeah, and
you.
I'll be there with Dom too in Mexico. So I'll see you then.
See you.
Perfect.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Cheers,
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.